All right, good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, February 10th, 2021 North Andover Conservation Commission meeting. Just a brief announcement as to tonight's meeting format. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26 or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance or members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible for after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in the public hearings, please email your question or comment prior to or during the meeting to amaxner@northandoverma.gov. Question or comment will be read during the proceedings and responded to accordingly. So I'll turn it over to the chair for roll call attendance.
Okay, thank you. So first guy will be Jack Maven.
Here.
Very good. Joe Lynch.
Here.
Very good. Al's not here. Sean McDonough.
Present.
Okay, and Tony Capichetti.
Present.
And myself, Louis Napoli, the chairman. So the first order of business is the approval of minutes for January 27th.
I have read those minutes, and I would move that we approve the minutes for January 27th, 2021, as drafted.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. First order of business of COC for 242-1777, 500 Great Pond Road, North Andover Country Club.
Alrighty. So this order issued in January of 2020 governed the construction of a building addition, a wood frame deck, permeable paver walkway, and a permeable paver patio extension, in-kind grease trap replacement, and replacement of sewer pump chamber in a slightly different location. The work took place within the outer riverfront area between 100 and 200 feet, associated with an unnamed perennial stream that is located to the west of the existing clubhouse. Work was entirely outside the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland located to the north and east. All work has been completed in compliance with the approved plan, and I reviewed the site in December and I found no outstanding issues. The site was totally stabilized with sod. Let's see, an unexpected benefit from this project resulted in the discovery of a subsurface UST with heating oil, which was removed under LSP supervision with no incident or complications and no soil impacts found. So I'd recommend a full issuance of a full and complete certificate of compliance with ongoing condition as prescribed in the order. Among them is operation and maintenance of the paver patio as it serves as a stormwater infiltration BMP.
Thank you, Amy. Jack, any questions?
No, I have none, Lou.
Very good. Joe?
No questions.
Sean?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Motion?
Move that we adopt the certificate of compliance for 242-1777 500 Great Pond Road.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous. Next one is an RDA, 522 Pleasant Street, Stevie's Pond, Town of North Andover.
Alrighty. So this RDA is for the installation of a new 44 by 32 foot playground footprint with structure to be constructed at the Stevens Pond Bathing Beach near the existing pavilion building. Town provided a work description, which includes installation of erosion controls. The existing grass and loam within the proposed playground will be removed, temporarily stockpiled on the site in the designated area on the paved parking lot, and removed off-site at the end of each day for proper disposal. Minimal grading of the proposed playground area is proposed. Concrete sonotube footings extending 18 to 24 inches deep will be installed at the main post areas for attachment of the playground structure. Playground structure will be installed and constructed, and then a timber edging border will be installed to demarcate the extents of the playground area, and then a required 1 foot depth of certified playground chips for shock absorbency will be installed within the playground border. Work will be within the 100-foot buffer zone to the bank of Stevens Pond, and all work will occur outside the 50-foot no-build zone. Let's see. And that's it in a nutshell. And I guess my recommendation would be to close the hearing and issue a -3 determination with 2 conditions that require pre-construction inspection of installed erosion controls and then post-construction inspection to observe final stabilized condition and approve removal of erosion controls.
Thank you, Amy. Jack, any questions?
Really just a one. This looks like a good RDA, but I noticed that one corner of that play area comes right up to the 50-foot no-build zone. I think the pre-construction inspection of erosion control should include, location of that 50-foot setback, and in the same way, inspection of the location of the limits of that play area. As long as it's outside the 50, I don't have a problem. But I think it's where it's really just about touching the 50. It's worth paying attention to that in the pre and post to be as part of the pre and post inspection.
Okay.
That's my only comment.
Thank you, Jack. Joe?
I agree with Jack. I'm all set.
I'm all set. Sean?
All set?
Tony?
All set.
Motion.
I move that we issue a -3 determination for the playground plan at Stevens Pond with the conditions noted in the discussion.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous. Amy, you were there when we talked to John Borghese about some of the stuff, so
Yep.
just reinforce that stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, thank
Yep.
you.
Yep.
All right, next thing is the NOI, 242-1787. I know I'm supposed to recuse myself, but we are not gonna have a quorum tonight. And plus, Mike Miller, the airport manager, is not gonna be here also. I've asked him to be at the meetings because all kidding aside, it is his land. So, is the applicant here?
Yeah. So, well, their representative is here, but we've discussed and we have an email exchange confirming the need for a continuance to the February 24th meeting.
Okay,
Yep.
so you're comfortable with that. All right, so we need a motion?
I am curious before we make a motion to continue. There was going to be some hope that we'd have a DEP representative either at this meeting or a future meeting. Has any headway been made on that?
I emailed DEP and I had a brief conversation with Jill Provenzel, but I did not gather through our discussion at the last meeting that you wanted DEP at the meeting. I was told to pose questions to DEP, but not.
Okay. I thought part of it was to engage in a conversation regarding the benefits or the disadvantages to infiltrating through that media and whether it was appropriate to cap it as they were proposing or to infiltrate it in a more distributed manner across the broader site. I thought that was going to be a dynamic conversation. Or maybe you had that with them.
I can follow up further with them. It was, like I said, it was a brief conversation, and I can delve into that with them. I suspect that we're not going to get much in writing from DEP. It'll be a bunch of conversations. So, but I can definitely call again. Yep. Very good.
Thanks.
Okay.
I move that we continue the public hearing for
to the 24th.
2/4/1787, the 24th.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Next one is 242-1802, 1010 Johnson Street.
Alrighty, so the commission will recall that this project involves a septic system upgrade to replace the existing failing system. Site contains BVW and buffer zone and 2 off-site IVWs and their associated buffer zones. We had Conservation Department staff looked at the wetland line at the time of filing. A new septic leaching field is located within the 100-foot buffer zone and 50-foot no-build zone to the northerly isolated wetland at B-series wetland, with proposed grading as close as 30 feet to the IVW. The existing tank will be utilized and a new pump chamber and piping is proposed. These components are behind the house, but outside the 50-foot no-build zone. Let's see, so at the last meeting, the commission wanted to get confirmation that the Board of Health was going to issue their variance as the system is not meeting their 100-foot setback to the wetland. And we needed an updated alternatives analysis. We have received confirmation that the Board of Health has approved the variance and an updated and improved alternatives analysis, which I believe is more comprehensive and provides good rationale as to why the septic needs to be where it is. So I would recommend that the commission discuss whether they want to grant the waiver to the 50-foot no-build zone, and then close the hearing and issue an order of conditions. I drafted an order in case you do close.
Thank you, Amy. Jack, any questions?
Yeah, I think the alternatives analysis was written pretty well, and I went through it and understand it, except they mentioned there's a location in the front yard, I think to the south side of the front yard that that they couldn't put they couldn't put it over there because of a drainage line, and then there's also electrical lines and gas line. And when I looked at the plan, it's a little busy, but I didn't see any of those lines on there. So, you know, I mean, I believe them, but could we have somebody, is the applicant here, that could describe where those lines are? I see the drainage line, but I don't see the well and the electric and the gas lines that that are mentioned in the alternatives analysis.
I'm Jim Catmull, the design engineer.
Hi, Jim.
How you doing? As you can see on the south side, if you can look at these, there's a catch basin dry well, drain line, and then there's a water line going towards the south side. It's in between the 50-foot and the 100-foot buffer zone.
Oh, water service, WS, got it. Okay,
So,
okay.
and that's actually, that catch basin is actually a leaching dry well, and that's picking up groundwater. So we need to be away from that also.
There's a 10-foot setback to that or something?
It's more like a 50-foot setback because it's
Oh,
intercepting it's intercepting seasonal high groundwater.
okay. And you can see that it does. I just wanted to verify. Is the gas line is it running near the water line, or is it shown on the?
The gas line's actually closer towards the septic system. It's in the middle of the
Oh, I
house.
see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I see it. Yeah.
And then the electric lines on the opposite side. And there's also, obviously, there's a irrigation well. It's a very tight, difficult site. Lot going on everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, that catch basin is a big deal on the water line as well. Okay. I have no more questions, Lou. Thank you, Jim.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Joe?
No questions. Very good.
All right. Sean?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Motion? Oh, this requires a waiver, you said, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we got to vote on that first.
I move that we approve the waiver of the 50-foot no-build zone for the leaching field as proposed on 242, 1802, 1010 Johnson Street.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous. Now the decision, Jack.
Yeah, I move that we close 242, 1802 and issue a decision within 21 days.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Next one is 242, 1800, 158 Forestry.
Alrighty. Alrighty. So since the last meeting, well, you recall at the last meeting, the commission asked if the applicant would speak to the neighbor about looking at the pool on the neighbor's property. And then some of the members indicated they would may want to visit the site. And then let's see. The applicant sent a package with a letter requesting that the commission find that there are no practicable locations for the proposed pool, patio, and shed, and find that he has met the burden of proof that the project will not result in negative impacts to the potential vernal pool, and that the vernal pool no disturb zone is going to be enhanced with the proposed planting mitigation plan, and ask the commission to grant a waiver.
Okay, quick question.
Yeah.
At the last meeting, Mr. Lynch asked for that the pool be certified, which somehow, so that we could grant the waiver for the application. Because without that, we can't grant the waiver. So
Lou, this is Joe. Let me
okay.
Let me clarify what I said, because that's not what I said at the last meeting. What I said is that if this is a vernal pool, I would be not inclined to grant a waiver. So their burden would be to prove that it's not a vernal pool. And I say that, and at the time, I wasn't clear because I did not have the regulations in front of me to read. But since then, I have read them. If this is an ephemeral pool, the resource area, whether it's certified or not, is itself important, as well as the ephemeral pool habitat, which is the wetland area adjacent to the pool. And the setbacks, the 75-foot setback in this instance for a no build, is from the habitat area. And the provisions in our regulations for granting a waiver do not allow it for a structure. It specifically prohibits it. So the burden on the applicant, and the applicant's engineer or representative should know this by reading our bylaw, the burden is on them to prove that this is not an ephemeral pool, because we cannot waive it by our regulations. It's not whether we ought to consider it because there's no alternative or not. We can't. It's either ephemeral pool and you can't build it, or it isn't, and then it doesn't even apply. So the burden is on them to prove that it isn't. I didn't say it in that kind of detail at the last meeting because I didn't have the regs at my disposal to read, but I have read them, and I've just paraphrased them, and they're available, and the applicant's consultant, ought to have read them and know exactly what those words say. We cannot grant a waiver if this is a pool, period.
Thank you, Joe. The reason why I'm asked, I shouldn't have misquoted. That was wrong. What I was trying to impress upon the applicant or Amy is that you would ask that it be certified, or if it was or wasn't, for us to move on. And they made no effort, well, evidently, to do that. So it seems to me, based on the commission, that the waiver wouldn't be granted. So I was trying to give them enough a leeway to realize that would happen. So without the waiver, their project can't go forward. So like I said, talking to the applicant, talking to the lawyer, talking to the wetland scientist is a moot point, because the pool is going to be certified one way or the other based on what you just told us. So either the applicant can continue to adhere to what you just told them, or we can vote now and vote on the waiver, and I'd be pretty well sure that it wouldn't be granted. So, Mr. Ciano, I don't know who's representing them, would they want to continue to research the ephemeral pool more, or do you want to take a shot and see if you can get the waiver?
No, I think we have more deliberation on this tonight. I don't want to be pigeonholed into this corner, and I don't think we should be. When I asked the last hearing, you guys said that if we evaluated this to be a certifiable vernal pool, that to play devil's advocate, if we considered it vernal pool habitat now, you would deny us. If the only recourse would be to perform seasonal evaluations to see whether or not it supports vernal pool amphibians, in which case, if we found that it does support them, you would still deny us the waiver. The only recourse would be to study these vernal pool amphibians to see if it supports them, in which case we may overcome that presumption. I asked why the waiver would be denied, and you guys replied that we don't have to tell you that. So now you are telling us that. You're actually explaining to us in the bylaw that you cannot grant a waiver for a structure, that's explicitly prohibited under your regulation. Just for sake of clarity, is that prohibition for a structure in the no disturb or in the no build zone, or both?
So this, and who's that was just speaking? Is that the consultant or the applicant?
David Cowell, representative on behalf of the applicant. With me tonight, we have Nick Triano, who's the applicant, and we have Don Borenstein as legal counsel. Sure.
So it's not the bylaw. I'm reading from the regulations, and there are really two things. We're not talking about the 50-foot no disturbance zone to an ephemeral pool or ephemeral pool habitat. An ephemeral pool and ephemeral pool habitat are defined in very clear detail preceding what I'm about to read.
Yep.
But the 75-foot no build zone reads, no structure shall be permitted within 75 feet of the delineated edge of an ephemeral pool or an ephemeral pool habitat, whichever is greater. Structures include, but are not limited to, foundations, footings, associated single-family dwellings, multifamily dwellings, commercial and or industrial buildings, footings, pilings, impervious pads, sonotubes, or associated porches, patios, decks, houses, additions, building additions, including pools and pool equipment, fences, septic systems, and sheds. Specifically prohibited to grant a waiver. It continues, driveways, roadways, retaining walls, landscape boulder walls may be allowed in the 75-foot no-build zone when no other feasible location or alternative means exists. So it gives an opportunity for the waiver for certain things and prohibits others, which is what your project is. Your only fallback is to determine that this is not an ephemeral pool. We cannot consider a waiver.
Dave, can I jump in here? Do you mind?
Yeah, please, Don.
Great, thank you. This is Don Bornstein, Johnson and Bornstein, 12 Chestnut Street in Andover. I'm an attorney for the applicant. And Joe, so I appreciate what you're referencing, and I'd reviewed that same section of the regulations before coming on tonight. But I think you need to square that with section 5.2, which lays out the standards for the commission considering waivers from no build zones. And the sentence that's important to me there is in the first part of 5.2. It says the commission may grant a waiver of the 50-foot no build zone and the 75-foot ephemeral pool no build zone performance standards and impose such additional or substituted mitigative requirements as it deems necessary upon a clear and convincing showing by the applicant that, and then it has a list of what we're supposed to show. So I agree with you that 3.1, I think it is you're reading from, is explicit, no structures, and it gives a whole list within the 75-foot zone. And then it gives a very small list of what waivers can be granted for. But then you get to the detailed section on waivers, section 5 of your regs, and specifically 5.2 on no build zones. And it's clear as day, the commission may grant a waiver of the 75-foot ephemeral pool no build zone. So I think somehow those two things have to be squared. So I just wanted to start with that. And I know Dave has.
But I don't want to debate that. And I see exactly what you're pointing out here. I don't want to debate that in great detail here, but I read that as in 3.1, when you can build those other things like driveways, roadways, retaining walls, and landscape boulder walls, that is the provision where those waivers can be allowed under section 5. But not the excluded areas where we cannot waive them. So the second piece of 3.1 that says those things can be waived when there are no other means or alternatives available, that's when section 5.0 kicks into gear and allows you to do those things, 5.2 allows you to do those things to grant that waiver. So I think that's how that squares.
See, I in my reading of it, I tend to agree with Attorney Bornstein. And I've kind of looked at this and I've gone back and forth. I think our reach to the ephemeral habitat area is just a reach beyond what's allowed under the actual non-zoning wetland bylaw. If you read our bylaw, we're allowed to promote regulations for resource areas and buffer zones, not create new buffer zones and new resource areas. I mean, I think we're really overstretching ourselves here. I went out to the site. The depression seems like it's confined on the abutter's property. And I mean, he'd be no closer than what the abutter's structures and lawn is and where his existing lawn is. I mean, if you go out there, it's pretty clear that this is not a migratory habitat area. And if he was willing to make some, concessions as far as how the fence was set, what type of material, and they're offering a lot of restoration area in an area that's devoid of habitat. It's basically brambles. I think we're really stretching on our interpretation of our own bylaw by the way we implement these regulations.
Boy, I was very much involved, as many of the members of the commission were, in the rewriting of these bylaws and the regulations along with it. A long time ago, when we spent an awful lot of time, and I didn't have them in front of me at the last meeting, but we spent an awful lot of time on exactly this issue. We were clear of what we were looking to protect, that the pool itself is very, very important, but equally important is their upland habitat or the resource areas adjacent to it for all those other interests that are defined in our bylaw and in our regulations. there was no question on what we were looking to accomplish, and my read on that is exactly what we were looking to accomplish. My recollection was that 2 weeks ago, and it's solidified by reading it in black and white tonight, and earlier preparing for this meeting. So I think we're in a really, really dangerous position of setting potential dangerous precedent, moving forward, where this is not what we were looking to do.
I just question what additional value a potential vernal pool or ephemeral pool, not located in a watershed protection zone or not located in any special resource area, has that's greater than the state standard. And upon appeal, I would be horrified to see I know what DEP would say. They would issue a superseding order, and then, if this went to court, I'd be horrified that we could lose the whole bylaw based off of some of the way it's written, because I think we are stretching by creating a new resource area that's not specifically pointed out in our enabling bylaw, and then creating a buffer to it.
I think the preamble to 3.1 and the definitions following that preamble really speak to the interests of these resource areas. And under our local bylaw, we were very certain we were able to do this and did do this. And we didn't do this willy-nilly. We did this with consulting help and with MACC's help. So we didn't do this solo. I'm firm on my interpretation on that. That's mine. I mean, Tony, you're entitled to yours as well, but I know what I've read and I know how it came to be. And what I suggested at the last meeting, I think still holds true. If there really isn't an ephemeral pool, then the burden ought to be to determine it isn't, and then all of this question goes away. It's just that it's inconvenient to do it with 20 inches of snow.
Well, it's inconvenient in that we're going to push this gentleman out till April, and I mean, try and get a pool contractor now. He's not going to get a pool installed until.
And that doesn't weigh into my decision. I mean, that's scheduling is scheduling, and maybe the author would have considered it last summer. Those sorts of things all always play out on timing. I'm not about to make a hasty decision against our regulation and bylaw because there's 20 inches of snow on the ground because of a scheduling concern. That's not our problem. Not my problem.
Historically, we don't do that anyways. I mean, if we did that, it would be case by case basis, and we'd be all over the place. I mean, the most important thing with this commission, I've been on for 16 years, we've tried to be consistent as possible. And 99% of the time, we are. And this is not a rare condition that we're experiencing here. And it seems to be the reluctance of the applicant. We have, to get that pool certified, and we have no correspondence. Like, I tried to get in touch with the abutter, I talked to the abutter, that we haven't had any conversation with that so far.
But I mean, as an abutter, if I was listening to this, I wouldn't let you on my property. I wouldn't even let you look in my direction, because you're going to take 100 feet from the wetland on my property or 75 at that point in time.
Well,
we asked the property owner. Nick, since the prior hearing, asked if we could access his property, conduct these studies, and we were denied. You're absolutely right. The property owner said no. That nothing good could come of this for him, and he denied us access rates. So we're limited to the extent that we can survey from our property.
Well, his problem is still the same. If he tries to do anything with his property, he's going to fall under the same purview as you are. So I don't know. I'm in agreement with Joe. I think the vernal pool, if they can't be certified, then therefore we have to consider it a vernal pool, and we revert back to the setbacks.
Right. I'd like to, can I just very briefly recap the highlights of our waiver request for the sake of Don Borenstein, who's now in.
I wouldn't, we're beating a dead horse. We know what you're trying to do. We've already addressed your alternatives analysis, and a couple of the commissioners said it was inefficient, and that we weren't going to allow delineations based on we're not sure what the pool is.
Right.
based on you getting to build what you want. And to be true, and like I said, I have other issues, but they're non-wetlands issues, so I'm staying out of it.
All right, great. So just to recap though, we did provide the request for waiver, and I believe we demonstrated clearly that there would be no adverse impact by constructing a pool, and if anything, there would be a net benefit to the resource areas for which your bylaws are designed to protect through mitigation. Does anyone on the commission deny or protest that that's inaccurate?
Yeah, I would protest
I maintain
that.
that that's inaccurate. If you did an alternatives analysis to build a driveway, a roadway, let's say the other things that are allowed, driveway, roadway, retaining wall, landscape boulder wall, if those are the things you were proposing and only those things were going to be within the 75, we could consider a waiver request. But since you've requested a waiver request for things that are not allowed under our regulations, your waiver request has no standing, no basis of fact within our regulations.
I was asking whether or not
you could easily request to build a hospital in front of it. We wouldn't allow that either. So the fact that you're asking to build a pool that's specifically prohibited for consideration under a waiver is without bearing. So like you may have requested it, but it has no bearing of these proceedings.
All right, so not to beat a dead horse and go round and round, because we seem to be talking about the same thing over and over again. Do you want us to vote on the waiver tonight, or do you want us to continue? I don't think there's any advantage. I don't think there's any advantage to continue, because we've had 2 meetings or 3 meetings and we've talked about the same thing. So I don't want to spend the rest of the winter talking about the same thing. So either you would, I don't know, vote for the waiver and hope that you get it, or I don't know, the alternative would be to withdraw and refile in the spring and try to talk to your butter into getting the thing certified.
Right. Well, here's the other 2 points that I wanted to make tonight is again, reevaluation of this and whether or not it's necessary to have this certified. You can look at certain aspects of this without the necessity of certification. One is where is the extent of the pool itself, right? So your bylaw says that you guys protect, there's the ephemeral pool. And ephemeral is defined as a confined depression, and I've already made the argument that this isn't confined, that there's an intermittent stream that runs through it and passes through it. So it's not a conventional confined depression. It's not confined. Secondarily, you guys, your bylaw is predicated on defining the extent of ephemeral pool as the mean watermark. And then we were misled that we would have to broadcast that off of the surrounding BVW from the pool, regardless of distance. But in review of your bylaw, you have a 100-foot ephemeral pool habitat surrounding that pool. And then from that 100-foot habitat, that's where the 50-foot and 75-foot would conservatively broadcast. And again, I don't know that that's accurately detailed on our plan as depicted, because we haven't looked at the limit of where the water is. Now that's something, if that level of water extends onto our subject property, that's something we can evaluate and see if the median or high gets onto our property. Otherwise, again, if we're denied, as we have been, access to the abutting property to evaluate that and field delineate it, we can either witness it from the property boundary or with a rangefinder, or we could do modeling based on topography and floodplain to determine what the extent of that is. And we reserve the right to modify our lines accordingly if that's necessary.
Joe, do you want to respond to that?
I just want to be clear on who was just speaking. Was that the applicant's representative?
Yeah, David Cowell, Senior Scientist with Hancock Associates.
Sure. I just didn't, I thought I was recognizing the voice, but I wanted to be certain. So with regards to your interpretation of what the resource area is, it's the greater of the two. It's the pool itself and the 100 feet beyond it, or if there is an associated BVW area that extends further than that, it's the greater of those two is where the 75-foot no build begins. Pretty well defined in the regs. So you're correct though in being able to evaluate the limits by some means in order to strike that starting point to then be able to telegraph that further onto and towards your property to understand that impact. So, but I just wanted to be clear that it's the greater of those two. It's not one or the other.
Yeah, if I could add something too, Lou, this is Jack.
Go ahead, Jack.
You know, our bylaw is more stringent by definition than the state act, and so you know, as Tony said, you know, the DEP would look differently on this project than we do because they only interpret projects by the act, not the bylaw. The bylaw is by definition more strict than the act. And secondly, the presumption of the act and our bylaw is that the 75-foot no disturb zone has value to the ephemeral pool. And it's up to the applicant to overcome that presumption to justify the project. And it sounds like, you know, just the recent discussion is you've been sort of noodling around how you might define better to define it that presumption can be overcome. So it sounds like you're asking, or it sounds like you're leading toward continuing to do more work to overcome that presumption that is stated clearly as part of the bylaw and part of the act. And I do want to add that, you know, one of the things that really didn't seem right about this project was that it was anecdotally pointed out that, well, the neighbor would never let us on their property, and they're never gonna let us do anything, and now it just came out tonight that, okay, well, somebody talked to somebody, and it sounds like that's unlikely. Okay, but it didn't seem like there was much of an effort up to this meeting, up to learning, you know, 5 minutes ago that we were even that the applicants were even trying to define whether it was a vernal pool, get access to do that. And number two, that's the information you need to overcome the presumption of value. You need to understand what the pool is, what critters are in there, and what their migratory patterns are. And it just seemed very loose to me. And I'm glad that you guys are looking at it closer. And I'm glad that you're seeking out further investigation of this vernal pool and the habitat, because I think that's what we need. It's what we've been asking for all along, I thought.
Well,
and that's all I have.
Only the second hearing on this matter. It's not like this has been a prolonged, carried out hearing. We were asked at the last hearing to contact the property owner, and we did. So it's not like we dragged our heels on that. And again, in your statement that we're trying to presume insignificance of habitat in the 75, I think we've done that. Is that, you know, we demonstrated that the house was built with a 25, 50-foot conventional no build, no disturb setbacks, and the entire area of our per scope work is not habitat in the existing condition. Our pool will not result in any adverse impact or effect to vernal pool critters, even if they are out there, right? So let's just presume they are. And then we're offering mitigation to actually enhance that habitat and provide a net benefit. Now, I haven't heard any argument to the contrary of that. Well, I think we presumed or evaluated the value or lack of habitat or value in our footprint of proposed development.
Well, you've heard Mr. Lynch state that based on our bylaw, we can't even grant a waiver. So if it's a vernal pool. So we have to find out what it is, because we can't even grant the waiver even if we wanted to.
Lou, this is Joe. Joe Lynch again. And I said it at the last meeting, so I want to restate it again. And I cannot possibly negotiate with the abutter, the neighbor. But some people would say there's no upside to him. Well, in my opinion, there is. What you're looking to do is to not certify a vernal pool. You're looking to certify that it is not. You're looking to confirm that it is not. The benefit that your abutter gets is on a record, if you determine it is not, he gets a determination that it is not a vernal pool, and he does it on your dime. The upside to him also is, if you in fact find it's a habitat and you withdraw your petition, you just withdraw it without prejudice, and he doesn't have anything incumbent on his property, anything more than he would if he were ever to propose anything on his property, which he would have to go out and do the same work anyway. So he loses nothing. I think it's a valid negotiating point that I just fail to see how, and it's not my position to see why he wouldn't approve it, but I fail to see why he wouldn't. It seems to me that I would welcome somebody on to prove that I don't have a problem on my property.
Listen, that's a great sales pitch. We've already approached the landowner, asking permission, and we've been denied. So it really is a moot point that, we're not going to come back to him with a sales pitch to try to reconvince him or otherwise. It's already, beyond what's normally expected of property owners to be, asked by a conservation commission to get land access to property they don't own. We've asked and he said no. That's the end of it. I have no reason to believe anything other than what you're telling us.
All right, so let's get back to zero. Do you want to continue, or do you want us to take a vote on the waiver? That's your choice.
I'll leave that up to the applicant. But again, I just read through your bylaw again, and you guys were saying that you guys said that the 50-foot and 75 is set by the pool or the habitat, whichever is greater. You're right, it does say whatever is greater. But again, my point was that there's the pool, there's 100-foot ephemeral pool habitat, and that's where the 50-foot, 75-foot zones would broadcast, not necessarily the bordering vegetated wetland for which it is.
So can I just jump in?
Because
I want to make sure because I understand it that way as well. So I'm coming from Beverly, where we had a 100-foot no disturb zone from BVW that surrounded a vernal pool, period. So we had heard arguments from consultants stating that a BVW that surrounds a vernal pool could stretch for thousands of feet over multiple properties. So the thought was, so are you extending that 100-foot no disturb zone around the entire BVW, which, in application was cumbersome and not practical. So coming to North Andover, seeing that you limit the amount of BVW to 100 feet that surrounds a vernal pool, I see that as a big distinction. So I just want to make sure that if the BVW is, say, 200 feet around a vernal pool, we'd still start that measurement of the 50-foot no build, and the 50-foot no disturbance, 75-foot no build from the 100 feet of BVW, regardless of how much more BVW is beyond that.
That's right.
I that's how I understand it. So, which I think is reasonable, because coming from Beverly, that wasn't a reasonable, or practical approach. So I don't know if there's so to dovetail. So I don't know if there is a way to figure out mean high water of the pool, and then how much BVW extends beyond that, and is it a full 100 feet? Is it more than 100 feet? And if it's more than 100 feet, then maybe the no disturb zones get kicked back a little bit.
Right. And that's something we'd like opportunity to vet.
All right, so you want to continue? Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, we want to continue.
All right. So we want a motion to continue. Joe, I agree with you 100%, but let them hash it around some more, and I think they should talk to you about it.
Sure, fine.
Hey, Lou, you haven't made it all the way down the table yet.
I'm sorry, Sean, go ahead.
So, so I agree 100% with Joe's interpretation of the regulation. Was it 3.1 clearly and unambiguously states that no structures, and it lists out those specific structures, can be permitted within 75 feet. And then the rest of the paragraph says what is subject to an alternatives analysis. And it's the driveway sentence, and then it goes on to talk about stormwater structures. There's no ambiguity about this. And 5.2 is not contradictory to this. They actually are read hand in hand. So I think we have very clear statutory construction on which to rely here. And I don't think it's not ambiguous. There's really nothing to discuss in that regard.
This is just a clarification, because I'm the new guy on the board, but I don't see any mention of waivers in the 75-foot no build. What I see is that driveways, roadways, retaining walls, landscape boulder walls may be allowed when no other feasible alternative. And then when you go into the waiver section, it talks about that again, in so much that it would be comparable to a limited project. So I think we could approve those items without a waiver of the no build.
Oh, I completely disagree with that, Tony. This is Joe again. That is not what that says. It tells you the things that you cannot do. The presumption is those other things you can do when no other feasible alternative exists, which i.e. means a waiver. It's not ambiguous at all. It's crystal clear.
But when no other alternative exists, that falls back to the limited project, which is specifically related in the waiver section. This doesn't say we'd waive, it just says that we can allow it. A waiver is a waiver, just like a subdivision, has subdivision rules and regulations. You can waive things in there. This isn't, it's not a variance, it's not a zoning item, it's a waiver if it makes sense.
Mr. Chairman, do you mind if I jump in one more time, Don Bornstein?
Sure.
And I don't want to extend it too far, but you do grant waivers from your traditional 50-foot no build zone, right? With the appropriate showings. I think you just did one just before this.
Mm-hmm.
Your traditional 50-foot no build zone section is worded almost exactly like your 75-foot no build to ephemeral pool habitat. It specifically, explicitly prohibits that same list of things. And then it goes on and it says some other things can be allowed. So if you can allow a waiver under 5.2 under your 50-foot no build zone under traditional BVW setback, you can do the same thing for your 75-foot. So that's I think a homework assignment for all of us between now and our continued hearing is take a hard look at that and what does your waiver section 5.2 allow. I'll also note that the ephemeral pool section that Joe's been referencing, that preliminary section of it, the preamble when it gets to the suggestion of significance, it specifically excludes that no build zone. So it's built a little different because you treat buffer zones as resource area, but you specifically don't treat the 75-foot no build to ephemeral pool as significant. So if Joe's following along under 3.1 at the bottom of that page, presumptions of significance, it only talks about alteration of the pool itself or the pool habitat, not alteration of the no build zone. So I'm just pointing those things out where I don't think we're going to resolve it tonight, but I don't think it's nearly as clear as it's been suggested that 5.2 does not apply to waivers of the 75-foot ephemeral pool habitat no build zone. So with that, I think we're going to take our homework is go out and see where this pool actually is, see if it's something we actually have to talk about or not. And but I think it would be appropriate if you guys take a harder look at that, because I think it's a little more complex than we're making out tonight. But I appreciate the time.
All right, thank
Fair
you.
enough. I'd be willing to do that.
Okay. All right. So
One other thing, Lou, I would point out in 5.2 is that it says failure of the applicant to furnished any information that has been so requested shall result in the denial of a request for a waiver pursuant to this subsection. So I want that to be on the record as well.
Hence the request for the continuance. This is Don Bornstein.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion from Joe to continue. Right?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous.
So just for the record, I think I second my own motion, so someone else should second it.
I thought Sean
I
did.
think
seconded.
Sean did.
Yeah.
John did. And I'd like to interject to the applicant also, or his representatives. It's quite evident that what exists now, what you're presenting, is a deniable waiver. So I would, the next 2 weeks, I would really research it. Our commissioners are going to do so also. But I would urge you not to come back with the same application, because I don't think it will go well. I'm trying to get it through or get it resolved, because we seem to be talking about the same thing over and over again. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you everyone for their time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, next one. NECC, is this a small project? NECC 271, 1550 Salem Street?
Yes, because it's an isolated vegetated wetland only.
Did we already talk about this? This is
No.
Okay.
So that's a new NOI, but it's within a buffer zone to an isolated wetland. So not regulated under the state.
Okay.
That's why.
Okay.
So the agenda citation of 242, that XXX, that's just, it should be NACC.
Yes, that's,
Yeah.
I messed up on that. I didn't,
Okay.
so that was my,
Yeah, typically we call small projects NACC dash, and I think there's a sequential number after that. So for convention purposes, that's what we typically do.
right, so, but if it's.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway, okay.
She's trying to throw us a curveball, see if we're paying attention.
We should give it an NACC number though.
We will. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right,
Alrighty.
Amy.
So this is a notice of intent for 1550 Salem Street. The project entails installation of a 42 by 64 above ground pool with a surrounding deck and stairs, deck expansion at the rear of the house, and new stairs and landing coming off of the existing deck at the rear of the house. Underground electrical connection to service the pool equipment is proposed. Equipment is to be set on a 3x3 concrete pad, and a new shed is to be installed outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. All work is outside the 50-foot no-build zone. All work is within existing turf lawn, so it doesn't involve any removal of any vegetation or trees or anything like that. So you'll note on the plan and in the narrative that there's a 347 square foot pocket of hydric soils that's located between the proposed pool and the delineated isolated wetland. The wetland consultant performed numerous soil samples in and around this pocket and found upland soils between the isolated wetland and this pocket, so that showing that they're not hydrologically connected. So we have this small little 347 square foot area that just happens to have some hydric soils, but isn't big enough to be regulated under our bylaw, because isolated wetlands need to be 1,000 square feet or more. The backyard is gently sloping toward the back of the property, and then becomes wooded and then slopes uphill to the rear properties abutting Long Pasture Road. The site is not located within natural heritage or endangered species priority habitat, but the rear property line does abut priority habitat that is located on the Long Pasture Road properties, and no other resources are on site. I haven't been able to review the wetland line before the snow fell, so I'd be asking for a continuance to allow conservation staff to review the wetland line. And let's see, and I was just maybe continuing to March 10th, because we're going to have a very active weather pattern coming up. So
Yes, we are. What, Amy, I remember us talking about this one. I thought we were gonna put this under an RDA.
no.
We said NOI?
Yeah. Well, I don't even think I really talked to you about it.
Oh, yeah, we did, because we talked about that small piece of wetland that we weren't even gonna discuss because it wasn't even measurable.
Right. Well, no, it came in as an NOI when we talked, so it was already submitted. So
Okay,
yeah, but
okay, Jack?
just want to explain what you're looking at on the plan, because there's this weird little pocket out in the backyard. Anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, Jack, any questions?
So it's an NOI, or is it a small project?
No, it's a notice of intent because it's in the buffer zone to an isolated vegetated wetland. The state does not regulate isolated vegetated wetlands, but we do underneath the bylaw. So there's a larger.
Okay, got it. I got it.
Yeah,
All
okay.
right, got it.
So it's not a small project, it's the NACC.
No.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, okay. I understand, because it's isolated, it's not under the act, it's under our bylaw.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean, I think you're right on, Amy. Verifying that line is the key to this project, and yeah, let's do that and do what we need to do to make the right decision. And if it comes up as plotted, it looks like it could be approvable.
Okay.
I have no more questions, Lou.
Thanks, Jack. Joe?
Can I just
Yeah,
ask?
I agree too.
Oh, sorry, what you saying?
No, there's a lot of noise, I think, coming from phone number ending in 44. So maybe that person could.
Nope, that's Bill Manuel, sorry.
Oh, hi, Bill. Getting some
Okay.
feedback there. Okay.
All right, Joe?
No questions. I agree with Jack and Amy.
Sean? Yeah, Sean?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Motion to continue?
So moved.
So, second,
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous.
And you're good with March 10th?
By me?
March 10th continuance?
Yeah, that's, well,
Okay.
yeah. So this doesn't require a DP number?
No.
Okay. Okay. This is the first one for me.
No, you have them.
What, no,
No DP file numbers? Yeah, I've seen files.
with an NOI?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, we're confusing ourselves again. So it's an NOI only under our bylaw. So it's the file number is NACC, fill in the blank. I don't know what number we're up to.
Yeah.
But so we're hearing it as an NOI, but only under our bylaw.
Right.
There is no DEP file number. We create our own number.
Right.
Okay.
So it'll be NACC number 271.
Okay.
71. Okay. Very good. Next one is 242, no DP number, 115 Ogunquit Road Lot 4.
All righty. So this is a new notice of intent under both the act and the bylaw. The site is currently a vacant wooded lot, with the exception of portions of the site that were altered to build the stormwater drainage facilities that are associated with the subdivision roadway and alterations for a water main that runs through the property. Proposed work includes construction of a driveway, walkway, construction of a portion of a dwelling, installation of utilities and grading within the 100-foot buffer zone to BVW, but outside the 50-foot no-build zone. The proposed septic system is entirely outside of the 100-foot buffer. Erosion controls in the form of silt socks are proposed along the limit of the work. The site is within priority habitat for natural heritage and endangered species. But per the agency's January 2008 letter, a building envelope was approved for the lots on this roadway, and the building envelope on the property is called out on the plan. Let's see. The northwest corner of the property contains a 100-year floodplain at elevation 114, but all work is outside of this zone, and all work is outside the 200-foot riverfront area to Fishbrook. So I'd ask that the commission continue the hearing, as I'd like to get out there and review the wetland line, and I would suggest March 10th. I think the plan needs a stockpile area called out and an erosion control detail, which doesn't have that right now.
And dewatering.
And dewatering, yes, thank you.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to search our files for the order that governed the construction of the actual roadway and stormwater features. I haven't located that yet, but
Okay.
I'm doing my homework.
So you recommend we continue for 2 weeks? Do you think DEP will come back by then?
Well, I recommend to March 10th, and hopefully we'll have a number by then. But hopefully we'll have ground conditions suitable for reviewing a wetland line.
I got the winning lottery ticket in my pocket.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Right. So I don't know what 4 weeks will bring, but I just
Hey, AFAF it, Amy.
Yeah.
All right, so we need a motion to continue.
Excuse me, Amy.
Yes,
Can I just make a few comments? It's John.
absolutely, John. Yep, this is John Moran.
Good evening. For the record, John Moran from the Moran Cameron Group. We're here tonight representing Peter Breen for Lot 4, Ogunquit Road. So Lot 4 is one of the 2 lots remaining on Ogunquit Road off the cul-de-sac. And the only additional info, I mean, Amy pretty much nailed everything. All work complies to your bylaw. Structure closest point to the wetlands is 93 feet. Back in 2007, when we were dealing with other lots in the subdivision, we were working with Natural Heritage because the properties were all mapped at that time. And at that time, we established building envelopes for the other lots that were remaining. And we actually received a letter from Natural Heritage back in 2007. And we had forwarded all that information with the current application. And we did receive a letter from Natural Heritage today reaffirming that everything is fine. They don't see it as a take, and that they believe that the project could be approved under an order of conditions. So that's the only thing I wanted to add. I also wanted to add Greg Hockmuth from Williams and Sparagus delineated the wetlands in the mean annual high. And we have no problem continuing to March 10th to allow Amy time to get out and walk the wetlands. Her and Greg had walked these wetlands about a year ago, but I understand she wants to walk them again, and that's fine.
Thank you, John. All right, so we need a motion now.
Move to continue to March 10th.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous. Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Next one is 242, no DP number again, Boxer Street, Lot 9.
Alrighty, so this is a notice of intent for, it doesn't have an address, so it's Boxer Street, Lot 9. The site is currently occupied by an existing building with associated driveways, concrete pads, and utilities. The proposed work includes demolition of the building, removal of these concrete pads, and construction of a new dwelling, associated driveway, walkway, installation of utilities, sand fill and vent associated with a septic leaching facility, and regrading. The proposed work is within the 100-foot buffer zone bordering vegetated wetland, but And most of it's out of the 50. A small portion of the proposed driveway is within the 50-foot no-build zone. And I don't know if we have a waiver request for that. Erosion controls in the form of a silt sack are proposed along limited work. Again, it's the same thing. The site is within natural heritage priority habitat, but we have a 2008 letter from Natural Heritage with the building envelope, and that envelope is showed on the plan. Portions of the property contain a 100-year floodplain at elevation 114, but no work is in that zone, and all work is outside the 200-foot riverfront from the Fish Brook. There are a couple of easements that are called out on the plan, a driveway and pond access easements for the benefit of abutting 770 Boxford, and a utility easement running from Boxford Street. So again, I'd like to ask the commission to continue to March 10th so I can get out there and review the wetland line. I did look at it like a year and a half ago, but without the benefit of the site plan, and my memory's fading. So I guess for plan updates, we would need stockpile area, erosion control detail, and dewatering as well.
Mhm.
And I don't
Thank
know if, yeah, that's it.
Jack, any questions?
Yeah, on the natural heritage thing, just want to make sure that we have those letters in our project file for these projects.
Yep.
Since it's a sensitive area, that long pasture.
Yeah, if I could just chime in there for a minute, Jack. Amy, those letters were submitted with the notice of intent, so you should have those.
So you did get one for Boxford too?
Well, we submitted with the NOI the letters that we had from 2007 that were submitted back to Natural Heritage. The letter that I forwarded you today from Natural Heritage actually has both referenced.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought it was just Ogunquit. Okay, so.
No, they listed both properties in that letter.
All right. Yep. So we have.
Yeah.
Yep, both.
Great. Okay. My only other thing on this is that, you seem to have good setbacks on this one as well. There is a waiver request for that driveway. Is it possible to skirt the 50-foot rather than encroach as it's proposed?
Yeah,
I guess that's for you, John.
Yeah, the one issue we have with that, Jack, is we're proposing to remove the existing structure that's out there, which is at its closest point, it's actually approximately 60 feet from the wetland edge, the existing structure. We tried to position the proposed dwelling pretty much as far outside, almost completely outside the 100-foot buffer as possible. And by doing that, it ends up with the garage doors on the north face of the structure, and trying to get the turning radius around we have to come around the septic when bringing the driveway in, and then trying to get into the garage doors on the north face of the structure. If we try to cut it and stay out of that 50-foot no build, you just can't make the turn. And I thought, and obviously I thought wrong, I remember over the summer filing an application with the commission, and in that section under the bylaw that says that driveways, roadways, retaining walls, and landscape boulder walls may be allowed in the 50 when no other feasible location or alternative is available. I thought we discussed that over the summer, and it wasn't a waiver. It was the commission had the right to allow it if there was no feasible alternative. But obviously, based on the discussion earlier that I heard, it is a waiver. So we will put a waiver request together. But again, the reason for that is because of the way the garage doors are, you can't get around the structure. We did look at potentially making it a front entrance garage. And even with that, we're clipping that edge of the 50-foot no build. The amount of driveway that's in the 50-foot no build is 355 square feet.
Yep.
Just so that you know.
And nobody wants a front entrance garage either.
Not
No,
usually.
Mr. Moran, it
Oh.
says existing water main going through there, and there's an existing hydrant, so you're no closer than that existing work, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so,
And that water main is when Amy brought up on lot 4, she had mentioned that there was work done on the lot when they built the stormwater management areas for the subdivision. And then probably about 7 years after the subdivision, we filed for a water main extension. That's what this water main was. We did get a certificate of compliance on that. But you're exactly correct. That hydrant, we're actually about 6 feet, the edge of driveway is 6 feet up from that hydrant.
excellent, thank you.
I'm all
Okay.
set, Lou. Thank you,
All
John.
right, Joe,
No questions.
Sean?
No questions.
Okay, so we need a motion to continue.
So moved.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right,
Opposed?
I second that, Amy.
Oh.
Jack seconded it. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, all right, so that's all set. That's unanimous.
And that's to March 10th.
Yep.
Yep.
Might as well keep them both together.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
John,
Thank
before
you.
you go,
Yeah.
John, can you get me the DEP file number for the water main too?
Yes, and I wanted to point out, I did pull the file on the subdivision. I'll try to look through that by the end of the week. I'll be able to get you all the info on the subdivision road as well.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too.
thank you.
Keep going.
Okay, next thing is decision time, Great Pond Road. What's it, 277?
242-17, 243
Right.
on road. Pull it up here. Okay.
So. Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair? Tony again. Seems like we have a standard comment, number 44. I'd like to start adding in one roll of erosion control blanket. It's only about $50. And I'll tell you, it's bailed me out a number of times. And, you know, with rain events, you get caught with exposed slopes. You get that over the slope, it helps. And where this is in the watershed protection, I think that's a good $50 spent.
I agree.
Good input.
So would you say that the 25 feet of mulch stock plus the blanket would be sufficient, or?
Yeah, a roll of blanket, it's usually 100 feet by 3 or 4 feet long
Okay.
is a standard roll. So say
Yeah, the-
300 square feet of blanket or something like that, or even if you want to go down to 250, just so you know if it's an odd shape number.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, it's enough that if you have some rills showing up, you can just lay it right over and kind of cover those.
Okay.
And Amy, just be careful. I'm sure you're sensitive to the fact that some of those blankets are woven with a
Oh, yes.
media in it that's really pretty harsh on animals. So there are some blankets that MACC absolutely endorses, and others that we don't.
Right.
So they may want us, you know, as a part of their submission in the future, just tell us what they're proposing to use so we can review it.
Okay.
But I think the use of it is a very good thing, and even with the critter impacts that are potential, that the erosion would be much worse. So as a stopgap to have on hand is a good thing.
Okay.
By the way, Amy, I like number 39.
39, let's see, what is that? Yeah. With the bold underline?
Yeah, and so we don't get a couple of I don't know, so I didn't know.
I know.
Yeah.
Is that a new condition? And I'm curious if it is have we had trouble with that? You know, field changes and coming in after the fact?
Oh, we've had after the fact modifications before, not NOIs, but after the fact modifications. We've had several over the years.
I mean, it's a harmless condition, and it puts it right out there to put people on notice. I mean, most of us would think that would be implied anyway, but the average contractor reading it wouldn't necessarily think so. So yeah, it's good to put it in.
Yeah, there's a common phrase in the contracting and engineering field. Sometimes it's easier to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. So it's good that it's right out there.
Yeah.
Oh, we've all been in the industry for a long time. We all know there's always a gray area.
Yeah.
Well, I tend to, at pre-constructions, I tend to walk through each condition, which probably drives people crazy, but I also impress upon them that don't think a change is small. Let me decide, or let the commission decide if it's small.
Yeah, no, I've dealt with some agents that actually make the contractor come in and initial each page in front of the agent that he's read.
Yeah.
Each page.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I know, right?
But like what you do in any other contract, you initial every page.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
that's a good idea, Tony.
but no, I like that it's in there. I think that's a
$3,000 bond is kind of high for a patio project, but that's probably outdated by 10 years. So I'm just making note of it. That I think we're updating our our costs with modern inflation, and it's probably appropriate. That used to be the single family house bond, but so I think our single family house bond is going to be higher than that in the future.
Yeah, I asked Amy to increase it only because they're working in the conservation restriction, and I wanted to make sure that was protected.
Yep.
And watershed.
And watershed.
And, yeah, just insignificant note on number 47 because of the hyphen. Spell check mixed mini excavator, and it says min excavator.
Oh, thanks.
Not a huge
No.
issue.
Think.
Yeah, and strike the trade name Bobcat and call it a skid steer.
I know I own them, and it's taken me a long time to adjust to that.
To call it a
Good
skid steer.
marketing on their part.
And Bobcat isn't even owned by Bobcat anymore.
I know.
It's owned by Doosan, Korean company.
Is Kubota a trade name?
Yes.
Yeah.
So mini excavator is fine. Bobcat would call a skid steer.
Okay.
Rest of that sentence is fine. Where is Kubota? Or were you just suggesting that as an alternative?
Oh no, I just know that the subdivision next to me they use Kubotas. I'm like, is that the same thing as a Bobcat?
Kubota makes everything.
Oh, we're really looking for is really small, heavy construction equipment. What you've got, if you take out the trade name, is fine.
Okay.
Do you see Joe and Tony? What the hell do they call it? The Lucid property, anyways. The contractor tearing down the building just bought the biggest excavator that Cat makes.
Oh, no kidding. So
yeah, my son, I think they have to bring in 4 or 5 low beds. My son sent it to me. It's on Facebook somewhere. It's
Which building is it? Done?
Pardon me?
Amazon building?
Pardon me?
Which building was this that it was on?
The Amazon. It's
Amazon.
DWI.
1600 Osgood.
1600 Osgood. They had a Komatsu out there, but the cat made a big one. So they went with the cat.
That's so
It's huge. It's huge.
I've seen the
Absolutely.
Komatsu one before, and I actually have. I'll have to find. I have a picture of my truck sitting in the bucket of one because my uncle used to work for a wrecking company, and yeah, they're huge. I'll have to go by and check out the cat they have out there.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the biggest excavator made.
Wow.
I had years ago. I worked with a Komatsu that had a 10-yard bucket on it.
Yep.
And they had to load the 10-wheeler sideways because the bucket wouldn't fit in the dump body.
Yeah. So my uncle went up to upstate New York and did some demo up at a casino up there, and there were 7-story hotel buildings. In the 10-yard bucket, they'd reach up to the top of the building and just collapse it.
No way.
It was amazing.
Oh my God.
Oh, they're big. They're big.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, this one takes 4 or 5, at least 4 or 5, maybe more low beds to get it there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Each truck comes on its own. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Each track rather.
Yeah. Yeah. The boom's in 2 pieces.
Yeah. And then it assembles itself. At least the Komatsu one did by remote
Yeah.
control.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
So number
I'm letting
4,
that one on Great Pond Road.
No, they don't need that one.
I'm up to condition 59 is where I'm at. And I with Amy, we should probably say something just given the vulnerability of where they're working, that you almost want to be prepared when they encounter groundwater, not deal with it as a last resort.
okay.
So you can
So
make this
we-
part of your construction condition that they'll establish a groundwater handling area.
Yeah.
And, as part of pre-construction, show it on the plan, and we can just add it to the file.
Okay.
So that sentence in caps and highlighted in green would change to the contractor shall provide dewatering BMPs approved by administrator and placed on site prior to work.
Yes.
Yes.
And when you guys say settling basin, do you accept silt bags, dirt bags?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
All right. No, that's just because I saw the last sentence says that, pump water to be contained in a settling basin. For emergency, usually they pull out the bags rather than
I like that.
dig a hole.
I'll add it. Number 50. I gotta alter that. I had Taylor double check if there were wetland markers out there. There wasn't, so I want to change it to state that they need to install wetland markers on weather-resistant posts at 35-foot intervals.
Yeah, we did 30, but 35 is fine.
That's a long line.
All righty. Anybody have any other questions?
It looks
Nope.
pretty good.
Okay, let's have a motion.
I move that we approve the order of conditions for DEP file number 242-1799, 243 Great Pond Road as drafted and amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous. Last but not least, 242-1802, 1010 Johnson Street.
Where's that? I'm not seeing that.
It's not on the agenda.
It's because we closed it earlier. Got it. You had it ready.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. Desktop.
And again, on 44, I like having the,
I'm gonna make that boilerplate. Okay.
Amy, condition 57, given the fact that this is not in watershed and not so close to the pond, yeah, I think the standard condition is fine, as opposed to the more elaborate one.
Okay.
and if you encounter water digging your septic system,
I
you
know
have
you're in trouble.
bigger problems.
You're in trouble anyway, right? Yeah.
True.
But you may do it for the tank, so I understand it. It's,
Oh, okay.
Actually, this one, they were using the tank as a pump chamber, weren't they?
Yeah. Well,
They
there's
are, yeah.
I think they were reusing the tank as a pump chamber, so yeah, we won't even get into it there.
yeah.
good.
Looks pretty straightforward. Everything else is standard conditions that mostly don't apply.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a motion then.
Move that we adopt order conditions as drafted and amended, 242, 1802, 1010 Johnson Street.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next thing is signal authorization.
Move that we authorize Conservation Administrator Amy Maxner to execute any and all documents duly voted tonight by the Commission.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. And last but not least, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous.